All right, this is our second day spent on this lesson 9.3 on slope. Your homework tonight is homework number 4. It is a slope worksheet. Make sure you show your work, please. Use your class notes to help you with some of the questions. So here's your bell ringer. Find the slope of each line. So on Friday, we had talked about 4 different types of slope. So in your notes, we talked about the Mr. Slope Guy face, that if it slants upward, it's positive. If it slants downward, it's negative. The straight vertical line up and down is an undefined slope, and a horizontal line for his mouth would be 0 slope. We also talked about how to find it on a graph using rise over run. So from point to point, how much rise and how much run, and you can tell whether it's negative or positive. Make sure your answer is in lowest terms. So with that said, take a minute and solve these 4 types of slopes questions. So you can pause the video and figure these out. All right, so using rise over run, here are your answers. So from this point, I need to rise 1, 2, 3 and run 2, and I'm running to the left. So this first one is negative 2/3. The second one, from this left point, I need to rise first. So that's 1, 2, 3, and running in the positive direction. So this is positive 2/3. The one on the bottom left is a vertical line up and down. So that's like the nose on the Mr. Slope guy, and this is undefined. So there's no number, but it's called undefined. And a horizontal line, remember I said if your heartbeat monitor shows something looking like this, that means you're dead and you have 0 heartbeat. So that is 0. All right, so if you haven't already, please take out your notes and we'll talk about day 2, the slope formula. So this is where we subtract our y values and we subtract the x values. So I'm going to label these points. This is x1 and this is x2. So that just means those subscripts, the first x value and the second x value. You also have 2 y's. This is the first point and this is the second y. So those are what those little subscripts are. They are not exponents. So in order to find slope of 2 points, we are going to use this formula up here, and M represents slope. So I'm going to take I'm going to write these out again. So I have 1, -5, and 8, 3. So to find my M, find the slope, you are going to take the second y value and subtract the first one. So 3 minus -5. And be careful about those negative signs. On the bottom, you are taking the second x value and subtract the first. So that on the bottom is 8 minus 1. So I like to draw the top arrow and the bottom arrow because the top one is the y's and the bottom one is the change in x's. So now I just have to simplify this a little bit. So M is equal to, remember that subtracting a negative, these two change into a big plus sign. So we got 3 plus 5 at the top, that's 8. And on the bottom, 8 minus 1 is 7. All right, so this is your slope, positive 8/7. You don't want to change it to a mixed number, so you don't want to say this is 1 1/7. Or you don't want to change to a decimal answer either. Just keep it as a reduced fraction. Okay. So some classes got to this standardized test practice huddle on Friday and some didn't. So if your class did not, please pause the video and complete these questions. All right, the answers to these, 33. Which of the following is true concerning the slope of the line? Well, if you remember Mr. Slope Guy's face, that represents his nose, and that is an undefined slope, straight up and down. 34, a horizontal line looks like something like this, and it passes through that point. What's the slope of the line? Well, if it's horizontal, that's like his mouth, which had a slope of 0. The slope of these 2 points, this is the new material with the slope formula. So you're going to take -1, take away 5 at the top, and on the bottom, 6 subtract -3. So -1 subtract 5 at the top gives you -6. And then at the bottom, 6 minus -3 changes to 6 plus 3, which is 9. And that reduces to -2/3. So the answer here is C. And find the constant rate of change for this animal race. We have time in seconds, distance in inches. So we can use rise over run. This decreases. Even though it's 2 blocks, you got to look at the scale on the left side. It goes from 3 down to 2, so that drops by 1. And then my run to that point is going a distance of 2 inches, so it's -1/2. All right, so if you already had that done in your notes, I want you to solve this. These were the wrap-up questions from Friday we didn't get a chance to go over. So solve these 2 and these 2 graphs in your team. So you can pause the video, take a minute to do that, and then I will give you the answers. Find the constant rate of change between the quantities in each table. So remember, this was the X, this was the Y. The time is increasing by 5 every time, and the gallons is increasing by 60. Remember, it's always Y over X. So you have 60 divided by 5, which is 12. And you need a unit. So it's 12. The Y value was gallons. You can use slash for per, and then minutes. So 12 gallons per minute is your unit rate, or constant rate of change. The second one, you could use rise and run, rise over run. So this one is decreasing, so it is dropping left to right. From this point, I need to drop 2 blocks, but notice the scale is counting by 2, so that's actually dropping down 4. So your rise is -4, and you have to run to the right. This number in between is 8, so that went 8 units, even though it's just 2 blocks. Be careful about the scale. -4/8 reduces to -1/2. We have to interpret that meaning. So if you look on the y-axis, it's flour remaining, and on the x is cookies. So that means every 2 cookies uses 1 cup of flour. Okay, so each time I bake more cookies, I have less flour remaining. And the 2 graphs at the bottom, your answers, you could tell that this one is increasing slope, left to right, rise. So that's 1, 2, 3, running 1. Both of them are positive, so you can do 3 over 1, or just 3. And number 6 slope is a horizontal line, so that slope is 0. All right, so here's just a few more examples of finding slope of 2 points. So again, x1, y1 is just your first point, x2, y2 is your second point, and your formula is there. So it's kind of color-coded to help you out. So one more class example. Again, I'm going to go from the second y to the first y and draw a connecting them above. That's going to be -11 subtract -7. And on the bottom, second y to the first, I'm sorry, second x to the first x is 15 minus 3. And this is going to be equal to m. We use m for slope as it's the movement. And then reduce this. So negative 11 minus negative 7. Remember, subtracting a negative changes to plus. So this makes negative 4. 15 subtract 3 is 12. And this reduces to negative 1/3. So always reduce your fraction. And that is your answer. So, in your notes, you can pause the video and practice these 4 problems. And I'll give you a few minutes and then I will show you the answers to these 4. Alright, so here are your 4 answers. I do want to point out that when you're subtracting a negative, you can subtract and put the negative number in parentheses or automatically change subtracting a negative to a plus sign. With the top left one, you had a negative 1 over negative 5. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so those cancel each other out. So you should have 1/5 for the top left. The bottom one, we can't reduce anymore, so 24 over negative 5. On the right side, the top one is 0. 0 divided by 6 is 0. And the last one, I'm sure some of you might have thought that was equal to 0. But negative 4 divided by 0, you cannot divide by 0. So when the 0 is under the fraction bar, it is undefined. So 0, under, undefined. Okay, so those are your 4 answers for slope. And lastly, our wrap-up questions. So if you have some extra time, you can solve these on a whiteboard and practice them in your teams. Because these are not in your packet of notes. So you can try these problems, pause the video, and then I will display your answers. All right, so these are your answers to the wrap-up questions. Number 10 is that 0 under the fraction bar, so that's the one that's undefined. Number 8 was 2. Number 7 is negative 11 over 1, or just negative 11. And 9 is 3 over 1, or just 3. So make sure when you are doing your homework worksheet tonight that you are showing the work, you're using the formula. Another way of getting slope from a graph is using rise and run from point to point. And part of your homework too is the x and y intercept review. Remember, if you want the x intercept, you set y equal to 0. If you want y intercept, you set x equal to 0. Graph the points on the x and y axis and connect the dots with the line with arrows. So make sure you do your homework for tomorrow. All right, see ya.